The guys who are in Kharkiv on the eastern side, it's actually, I think it's a minute 15 seconds between when a missile is sent from Russia to Kharkiv, and you haven't got enough time to actually get down to a bomb shelter. So you kind of have to just hope and just carry on as normal.
This episode of Everything Rugby League, the podcast, is an interview with Dan Beardshaw, the head coach of the Ukrainian Rugby League team. As a co-host, I can't possibly imagine what the players are going through in this time of war. To still train and play rugby league, the game that they love, leaves both Stuart and I with nothing but admiration and respect. We hope that everyone in Ukraine is doing okay. Our thoughts and love go out to you.
The government will pay for their trains to come off the front line to then travel to a training or a game day. Like you've seen with some of the games, that they actually have they have to, before they start their tournament, have backup plans of, if the air raid sirens go, the footage will cut and then they'll disappear into the bomb shelters and do what they need to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the podcast, we have a very special guest in Dan Beardshaw, who is the head coach of the Ukrainian National Rugby League team. This is an interview that I'm personally really looking forward to, given the unique but unfortunate situation that the Ukrainian team finds themselves in. Dan, welcome to the podcast, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
All right. As always, I've got my trusty mates, Stu. Stu, you keeping well, mate?
I'm keeping very well, actually, Keith. We're coming to the head with the NRL, which is exciting, and we've got Spoon Bowl on tonight, so that's another one exciting for me as a West Tigers fan. But more exciting is we've got both in the northern, southern, and the southern hemisphere International Rugby League back on the calendar, so that's really exciting as well.
Absolutely. I am predicting that Parramatta will win tonight. I'm sorry to say, Stu, but I really hope the West Tigers do. And also, Battle for the Eight, I predict the Dolphins will win over the Knights. So by the time this is released, I could be wrong on both counts.
I'm with you on the Dolphins. I'll reserve my judgment on the West Tigers. I'm just hoping it's not 3 in a row, to be honest.
Me too. All right, do you want to get us started and kick this interview off?
Yeah, thanks again for coming on the podcast, Dan. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to rugby league and coaching?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it, so I'll start with it. Obviously, this next 24 hours for myself is very exciting. I'm a West Tigers fan as well, Stu.
Right.
There's a few of you around.
Yeah, exactly. We're all coming out in Campbelltown in the southwest. My wife's a Tigers fan as well. Probably that's why I'm a Tigers fan. But to me, I think I'm going to believe the old Tigers. I think they'll step up. The young guns will get a result this evening. But even closer to my heart is I'm originally from Hull, so Hull Kingston Rovers are my team. So 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll be up ready to watch Hull Kingston Rovers and Wigan try and get that league leaders shield. Was originally a fan of them when they were sort of in the third division, where we had about 1,000 fans and no money. So to see that rise is really exciting. So as a Rovers fan, I needed to get that in there first. But yeah, so in Super League, my team's top. In NRL, my team's bottom. So it's I'll take middle of the road, to be honest. But yeah, just to go off my sort of how I got involved in rugby league. Like I said, I'm from Hull. Hull Kingston Rovers is my side, so I'm from the east, the red and whites. Something special about Hull is that there's the two Super League sides there, and it is the predominant sport. Even though you've got the Tigers, the soccer side. I've been in Australia long enough. I'm saying soccer, not football. And that's one of the things. It's such a key part of the culture of Hull. Everybody I knew played. My family of supporters. Half my family are black and white, as in Hull FC, and the other half are red and white. So we've always got that rivalry, even just growing up. Starting the game, actually, my brother started playing probably 6 months before me, and he was just a natural gun. Absolutely great player. Got a lot of attention, and I was a bit like, I'm going to come and play. Kind of a bit of a joke of a player, really, looking back. There's footage of me where there's a ball got dropped by somebody, and I run away from it, like on the field. It's just that whole, I just wanted to be part of the game. And then I really enjoyed it, the camaraderie and meeting different people. And it was only a few years later, actually, where I broke my my arm playing a game, and didn't realize it didn't actually hurt that much. It wasn't as scary or painful as I thought, and apparently I came back and was a different person. 6 weeks in a cast, come back, and I was just tackling everything. Um, that's just down to like sort of that self belief and having a couple of coaches and my family sort of giving me that bit of support. Sort of something that I've kind of taken into my career for the rest of my sort of since then is that doesn't matter who you're speaking to or who you're working with. Like, yeah, as long as they're making the effort to come in, eventually you'll find that key is to turn that door, open that door for them, and help progress them as a player. And I think some of my favorite stories growing up and over the last sort of few years in coaching are working with some of these lower ability teams or groups that not are seen as fashionable and actually helping them improve and taking them to success. And I think anybody can really sort of take on, say, the Australian national side and win games. You just have to turn up. While to actually get somebody who's lower down, I mean, Stu's been involved with Greece for the last couple of years and how
Mhm.
they've gone. And to me, they're the stories that made the World Cup. Most recently was Greece and Jamaica, who were actually expected to get pumped every game, but they've actually come out with some really good feel good stories that those people back in those countries will remember for the rest of their lives and help grow the game. And that's what it's about. Um, so yeah, so a bit of a jumped around there all over, but yeah, that's the start of my sort of playing career. Um, growing up, managed to eventually play for Hull Kingston Rovers. They're in the 21s back then. Um, it was just a dream, just playing around alongside some of those guys. I was 18 years old, sort of expected to play there for the next few years, and unfortunately, because of financial troubles, that they disbanded the 21s team at the end of that season, and kind of looking around, realized, well, I'm not going to make $1 million a year at this, so I went away to university and actually fell into the student game, which I ended up playing for Scotland under 19s and the students, and that was just a great experience, just traveling. I think one of the best experiences I had was we had a tour, which was Holland, Italy, Serbia. So we were on a bus, traveled to Holland, played the games, traveled down to Italy, then to Serbia, then back to Italy. And just the response that we had, even as an 18, 19-year old, going to these other countries and playing sort of like Serbia, where we put on like a big scoreline, and then after the game, as soon as the whistle finished, they came running over, shaking our hands, asking for autographs, saying thank you for coming to this country and showing us how the game was played. And that was back in 2002, 2003. So to see how far they've come, and even just last month going across to Belgrade and seeing the rugby league over the sort of last 20 years, 20 odd years, has been amazing. Just seeing what rugby league has done in the last 20 years. It's going to be exciting what rugby league can do in the next 20.
Yeah, I said to Stu when I interviewed him about Greece that I've always sort of, or at least for the past decade or so, seen Serbia as the baseline that a lot of other RLEF affiliated nations should aspire to. They seem to have like genuinely solid domestic foundations there, as opposed to sort of they took a bottom up approach as opposed to a top down approach. And they've got teams like Red Star, Belgrade, and you might correct me again, Stu, Dorsal or Dortmund?
Uh, Dorchel and Partizan.
Dortmund and Partizan. Like
Yeah.
it's a fantastic country. If you want to look at how it's done, I think Serbia for me is not a bad place to look. Question for you though, Dan, you've actually coached other international teams prior to Ukraine, Scotland A, and as an assistant with Poland. How did you come about that, and what were those experiences
Yeah.
like?
So after finishing university and things like that, I actually was playing for a local side, West Hull, and tore my ACL playing. So the old man with a knee injury sort of syndrome. When I was young, I was a good player, sort of thing. So I tore that, recovered, came back. First game, did it again. So I've kind of gone, okay, maybe playing isn't for me. So I've sort of started focusing a bit on coaching. And then as part of that, as being part of that Scotland setup that kind of applied for the Scotland A coach. And I was working with a guy called Ash Carroll and those players up there. As part of that is one of the sort of programs that we built was the so we had a residency sort of heritage side competition. So it was a Residents v Exiles game. So as part of my role was to be in charge of all the players outside, so based in UK, England, Wales, Ireland. So anyone who qualified for Scotland, I was kind of running a program for. Then we'd come together, play each other in a one-off game, and then they'll select the Scotland A side there. And that was something again. It was just exciting, especially playing against, say, the likes of England, and you're coming up against a big challenge, and and working with those players and sort of really selling. You really need to sell what you want them to achieve and how, and have that belief. And it was something that was slightly different with Poland again over here. Um, Again, I said like that was a fair few years ago, but now Poland. I saw the advertisement. I was excited to the potential of working with a side like Poland, but also to work with um, sort of Lee Addison, but also the ability to assist with the development on the ground across there. And I think that's something that we need to really focus on. I mean, there's a lot of nations out there, especially here in Australia, where they'll say their heritage side and play in a tournament for a weekend. Um, I think we need to really focus on working on getting those roots on the ground. I think that's what we need to focus on. But with the Polish setup, we had some really good players and a different sort of standard of a bit different challenge. Watching everyone come together and sort of tell their story of like what it meant to them to play for Poland, like what their grandparents and everything, what happened to their family during the war and their great grandparents and the history of the country. Um, Really made me. It was a slightly different challenge to Scotland Day, but it was very much like seeing the response to the guys who are on the ground and the work that you are doing for them. Because you know the story that their family have gone through is something that you don't mind sort of volunteering your time watching hundreds and hundreds of different games and working on that Google Translate to get the messages across and sending videos across to those guys. Um, it's a different challenge, but it's exciting, and I think I'm just a lover of the international game, and like we said earlier on about cheering on the underdogs. I think the underdog story is what everybody loves deep down. I mean, I'm living in Australia, but if Australia keeps winning the World Cups, it gets a little bit boring. So I think everyone's kind of wants that lower tier team to step up. And I think just with a little bit of experience, what I've got to pass on with Scotland A, with the Polish setup, I think it's coming in handy with what I'm doing currently with Ukraine Rugby League.
Yeah, I totally agree with you what you said earlier about establishing roots on the ground. I think that's got to be number one goal with international rugby league, and often it is, but sometimes it's not, and I think it always should be. You mentioned Australia and moving from the UK to Australia. Tell us about that and what the difference you found in culture and rugby league.
So back in the UK, I was working in a school, Archbishop Sainsbury Academy, which is a football school. As part of that, we brought 4 players across. So during the schooling year in the UK, is your summer holidays are July to the start of September. So we took 4 of the boys, the players, sort of under 16s, across to Mackay State High School. So the schools were linked up, and as we were there, they went into mainstream education. I spent some time following them around in the class, but also spent time with the Mackay Cutters. Back then, Anthony Seabold was the head coach at the Cutters. So I had the opportunity to shadow him for a period of time and watch his training sessions and sort of see how he does a lot of stuff. So I picked some really good information up from him. But just the difference in the culture of, obviously Mackay is a little different to Sydney, but it's a lot different to the UK. I don't think I've ever got sunburnt walking to work at 7 o'clock in the morning in the UK. But yeah, and then after that sort of 3 month period, I went back to the UK, and it was kind of like I want to have a chance. I want to spend a year or two across there and experience a new sort of culture and be around the rugby league. Um, sort of Sydney, really. So many NRL sides and so many teams, and see what I could sort of learn myself and take back. And it was actually, funny enough, a opportunity with Dave Butler, who's the European Rugby League general manager at the moment. He was back working with the RFL with the Festival of World Cups back in 2013. He he needed some liaison officers, so I volunteered my time. I spent 2.5 weeks in the Festival of World Cup working with the Australian Police national side. Again, there's another 2.5 weeks of working with an international side, but an Australian-based group of players.
Mhm.
Um, and that was just wonderful. The culture, the way that they came, the way they trained hard, but they also played hard. But they actually were undefeated throughout the whole tournament, taking the whole thing out. I'm still friends with them. Probably about 10 or 12 of them I still speak to probably on a monthly basis. Um, but yeah, again, that was another sort of signal of, hey, come across, come across, come across. So I eventually did. I bit the bullet at 29 and did the old working holiday. Came and did a bit of landscaping. I was working with a club called Five Dock, which are in the Balmain region.
Yep. I know Five
So I
Dock.
took
Yep.
them. Again, they were bottom of the ladder for 2 years running prior to me taking over. And I think we won their first 11 straight. So I was pretty happy with that. While I was there, I actually linked up with the Andrew Webster when he was within the 20s at
Oh, yeah.
West Tigers. So we actually knew each other from when he was at Hull Kingston Rovers. But as a person, just going over, I remember going over to the session, and he just leaves coaching and comes over to shake my hand, saying, "What are you doing here?" So yeah, so the rest of that season, I spent a lot of time shadowing him with the 20s at West Tigers, and that was again another great opportunity to pick his brain and have a good relationship. And I'm really happy with both these two guys, like Siebes and Webber, have gone on to be successful in the NRL so far. So yeah, so that was my sort of entry to the Australian market. Again, I don't know if I regret West Tigers as my team for since. I don't think I've seen them win many games.
It's a tough life.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Andrew Webster's a Connecticut Wildcats great, so I'll support him. And I'm a Warriors fan,
Yeah.
personally, so he's been a great addition for the Wars. So anyway, one of your first coaching roles in Australia was actually with the Mittagong Lions in Group 6. How was that as an experience?
Yeah, so as part of it, once I was finished up with Five Dock, I managed to work with the NRL. I was a game development officer for 4.5 years in Southwest Sydney. As part of it, I've done with the West Tigers. I did some stuff with the Bulldogs as well as sort of the development players. And then opportunity came up. I was working in a school, sort of doing some development work down there, and I was working with the junior club. And then there was an actually opportunity working with the Mittagong Lions. One of my good friends now, Billy Hayward, he was the juniors president, and he's like, "Oh, I'll introduce you." And we had a chat, and I watched a few games and did my research. And again, I go back to that sort of taking that team that wasn't too successful, and really banding them together, and having a real good focus on, again, really good solid defense, good conditioning, not the old school conditioning of latch on the oval, which I've had in the past and I hated, so I try and avoid. Um, yeah. Um, but actually have a group of juniors and come together, really focused on locals coming through the system and have a good development pathway. So I spent some time working with the sort of the 14s, the 16s, the 18s, and and really develop that long term goal. Um, as part of it, we created a junior senior pathway. So we did times where the under 16s came and shadowed the first grade game, or a reserve grade game at half time, watching the training sessions, first grade, half time, and then they'd come in and train with us on a Tuesday. So it'd be like ball skills and really focused on those first graders linking up with some juniors and helping that transition from that junior to senior football. And then alongside that, we focused on some workshops, so strength and conditioning, nutrition, mental health, and positive relationships. So even like not everybody's going to transition across to senior football, but we're going to actually hopefully make them a lot better person in the long term. So it was again that whole holistic view. And these players that were 17, 18 decided to go away and have since come back to playing for the club. So I spent 3 years there, and then yeah, that's when the Poland opportunity came up after that. Um, but yeah, that's about it. My obviously with the visas, I've sort of my wife is an Australian native, a West Tigers native. I think she felt sorry for me a little bit. I was in the friend zone for a little while. I managed to get myself up to that. But overall, she's been so supportive. She loves football. She played a bit of league tag herself. She's very sporting. And like anything, and I say this to everyone, not like about your wives and the support from family. You can't do this without the support of your wife or your family. Um, and I think that's something that we need to sort of everybody needs to realize every so often. We have like Are You Okay Day and all these days and things like that. I think we need just a rugby league wives supportive day, like not women in league day, but just a way to thank women who who are patient with the footy tragics.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, just as an aside, when I was living in Athens, I met a Scottish guy playing for Red Star called Sam Herron, who I
Ah,
believe played for Scotland A, but also I think played for Mittagong Lions as well. Were you
yes.
connected with all that?
Yeah, so it's something that I've done for a number of years. Well, like I said, I've personally earned so much. I've gained so much from the game of rugby league, that I'm big on giving as many opportunities to players come across and assist them. Um, just the ability of giving them advice of, hey, here's some visa, like this is your visas, this is what you need to apply for. I'll pick you up from the airport, I'll take you and I'll assist you finding accommodation, I'll assist you finding work and things like that. And even just this year, I was assistant coach at Campbelltown City Kangaroos. And we brought two players, two English guys across. One of them, Elias, he's from Hull, where I'm from. Unfortunately, halfway through, he got a serious head knock and has kind of stepped away from the game. But even I said to him, I was like, "Here, I'm going to support you. Like while you're in the country, you come across to play football. I'm here to support you, and anything I can do to help with you, like help you. Don't feel sort of you have to play constantly. Obviously, with the issues of concussion at the moment. Um, so yeah, so just still being there with him. That was about 3-4 months ago, and even the other day I spoke to him about how I can assist him, and he's gonna help out with us with our Ukraine Rugby League Harmony 9 side.
Hmm.
So he's going to come on board with a bit of coaching and that. So
Nice.
uh, he's really keen, really knowledgeable, very intelligent footballer, which we don't get many of them, unfortunately. But when I say intelligent, he's got like a huge degree in history, and it's one of those really intelligent footballers, not just a clever one. So yeah, with Sam. Sorry, I forgot. I went on a bit of tangent again. With Sam again, it was a great opportunity for him across, and he just wanted a chance, and he came down to Mittagong. He played a fair bit of reserve grade for us, and played a couple of first grade games. And I think with him, it was just a case of him and another guy, Scott, came across. His surname has left me for some reason. Yeah, so they came across and we supported them and found them accommodation and work and things like that, and just to give them that taste of, like I said, when I came into Mackay, that short period of time of what a different culture is, and to then go back and majority of the guys that we've brought in over the years, so probably 12, 14 of them have gone back, either gone back or come here, or they're traveling and living and working somewhere else. Like with like you said, Sam's left here. He's not gone back to Scotland. He's gone to Serbia, and he's gone to other countries to experience what's out there in the world.
Yeah, no, that's great work, Dan. You're a youth liaison officer with the New South Wales Police Force. Does that role have synergies with your coaching career?
I think it does help me. Though sort of the coaching career has helped me a lot with my job. I mean, the ability to stand up in front of people. I mean, there's times where you're standing in front of 10 grown front row, like huge front rowers. It's just as scary as standing in front of 2,000 young people. The ability to sort of communicate and know that you're doing what you're saying and what you want them to do is for the right reasons. Obviously, it's slightly different to the goals you're setting for your rugby league players to young people in primary schools, where you're talking about cyberbullying and online safety regarding sort of photographs that are potentially being sent around, the issues or knife safety. It's very, very similar in regards to something that's close to my heart. That just making sure that there's those positive interactions and positive relationships, and people want to be around, and the fact that deep down you're doing it because you care, because you want them to either be safe or to be better, or that you always want them to know that they can come to you and talk to you, doesn't matter what level, or if I'm in uniform or I'm in a pair of shorts and a polo shirt. I think people, especially today, this day and age, are struggling with that identity and having positive relationships. I think more and more people, especially like podcasts like this, I think there's plenty out there that we listen to, and sort of technology is helping us with that. But it's bringing people closer, but also keeping people further away, if you get me. So I think the ability to communicate with somebody face to face in a one-on-one setting, or in front of hundreds of different people, or a huge group of 20, 40 players, there's a lot that are very similar but very different, if you get me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, I do. In your experience of being a coach, that is, how much of coaching is about relationship management compared to the technical side of things?
I think I first started, when I was first started playing, sort of 30 years ago. Geez, I feel old now. Um, oh, that set me back for the day now. Yeah, it was a case of laps around the oval, and I don't know if that's because that's what they were taught, or there wasn't really options to go and do. Like, say today, you can go on YouTube, anything. You can follow the playrugbyleague.com, the sort of the website and the resources that they have. I don't know if that was the difference, but back then it was a case of, okay, 5 laps around the field, we'll stand in a line, we'll tackle the tackle bag, and that's about it. Well, now you've got that ability to go technical, tactical. You can follow whatever you can find the information from. But even back then, I think I was under 13s, and we had a player, a coach come in, a guy called Vince, and his uncle, his nephew, Anthony. They came in, and they were just really good people who, as a 12-year-old, when you look, people, you realize that these people are here for the right reasons, and they're there, and you're playing games, you're having fun. And like, I remember in that 30 years ago, through to, like I said, when I saw Webbo at the Tigers training, he stopped what he was doing, he comes directly over to me and shakes my hand, and that genuine how you're doing. And I think that's something that sticks with people. I mean, we talk about, well, you look back, how many halftime talks do people remember the tactics and the techniques or anything? But you remember how certain coaches make you feel. It's about how somebody makes you want to do something that you don't want to do. As a coach, if you want your front rowers, you can tell them all the lines to run, but above all, you want him running through the defensive line. You want him running into a brick wall. If that guy falls in love with you and has a great relationship and he's willing to do anything for you, then that's what matters. If they believe that you care. And I know that's a lot about what we're doing. And I mentioned this earlier about that identity and relationships and positive relationships as a group. And this is one of the big draw cards to why I was so successful with our Polish side when I was involved with that. The players were related to each other. We sat in a room and there was a lot of tears, people talking about what their grandparents had gone through and through the war and displacement. And it's something that we're really encouraging our Ukrainian players to understand this now at the moment is to go through that. And that really binds people together. And that's it. Relationships, you hate somebody or you don't really like them, you're not really gonna feel like you've got the effort.
Yeah, I've been a people manager for more than a decade of my working career. I can tell you that the number one thing that you want as yourself as a manager, but the staff want from you, does this guy have my back? Does he have my best interest at heart? If the answer to those couple of questions is yes, then you're going to get so much more out of your team. And there's definitely crossover to all areas in life that have some kind of leadership structure to it. So be able to bring out the best in, well, for me, in my case, staff members, in your case, players. I'm a big believer you have your non-negotiables that are spread across the group, but you have that one-on-one connection that you build the rapport with to get the best out of each individual as well. And learning how to master both those things and balance them, I think, is an absolute art form. And it sounds like you're doing it really, really well.
Thank you. Still a lot of work to go at, like a lot of things. Still trying to work and improve every day. Sorry, Stu, what was you going to say?
Yeah, sorry, no. I was going to move us on to Ukraine. If you could just tell us how you actually became involved with Ukraine Rugby League.
Like I mentioned earlier on, I'm a huge advocate of European Rugby League development per se. Like I've always spent the time sort of on my laptop watching those games, watching sort of whoever Netherlands play or Norway and things like that. Just a huge lover of the game and seeing what people are getting out of it. You can see the smiles on their faces after the games. Like, may not be the best standard, but like I said, people get so much from the game. And I remember actually one of the games that stood out for me was Ukraine v Greece in the 2021 World Cup qualifiers. And I think Greece won by 2 points.
Yes, very close.
And yeah, I can see Stu smiling there of that nice little win. Okay. Well, sorry, I'll mention November soon, mate. It's just
yeah.
Sorry,
yeah. No, that's sort of got us through to the World Cup, basically. But
yeah, and that was just watching that game and how Ukraine with just a domestic side that no one really knew about, like what was going on across there. How like tough they played, and to me, it was something that has a car. Be able to get your hands on that and give them sort of a bit of rugby league knowledge and a bit of rugby league way of playing. A lot of them are of just playing off what they've seen off TV. And then I actually found out that Ukraine had actually for a three-month period sent sort of 8 players across to Milford Islands, sort of a 2018, I think it was. And have that opportunity where they've sacrificed time away from their families, from work and things to go across the UK and play there for 3 months. And I was like, wow, the commitment of these guys was second to none. Anyway, so that was sort of stuck in my back of my mind. And it wasn't until beginning of sort of last year that because of the conflict and the war that's going on, that they put a cry out for help. Sort of a lot of their guys and players are either on the front line or displaced or injured due to the war. And they wanted some sort of assistance in regards to players. So I was like, hey, I'm sort of loose end here. And I sent an email and sort of did a bit of research and put together a bit of a presentation, like a couple of pages of this is what I've done in the past. This is what I think I've watched you guys do. This is what I think would be great and beneficial. This is what I can bring to you. And this is a bit of a plan of where we can go in the next couple of years. And then Arta Rosie only got back to me, and we spoke back and forth for a period of time, and then he put me in touch with a guy called Matthew Gervin, who is based here. His wife's Ukrainian. Um, he he's a North Sydney Birds tragic, so he's like the rest of us. In regards to, yeah, so he's got involved, and we spoke. I think the first time we spoke for about an hour and 20 minutes. We were just bouncing ideas off each other, and we decided to bring a sort of group of the guys together who in Australia have got the heritage. Brought them together for a couple of training sessions, and actually took part in the Harmony Nines last year. And yeah, we were pretty successful. We won one, lost two, but we lost one of them on the bell against Philippines, which was a bit of a coach killer. We were like, sort of, the bell goes, instead of just drilling the ball in the touch, they try and do a grubber kick to score again, and then the strike player for Philippines, Ned Stevenson, picks the ball up and goes 95 meters and scores for them. So anyway, that's coaching for you, eh? So that was my sort of introduction. And throughout that period, we continuously were speaking with Arta and a few of the guys, and with my experience with the NRL and doing some sort of coaching courses and coach education, that they brought me on board to help with the coach education. So we got this WhatsApp group with all the coaches in the Ukraine. So I was sending information through, from counting numbers and using a whiteboard and using Google Translate, to answering questions about like winning the rocks, and really spending a lot of time back and forth with a lot of their coaches to try and sort of improve their rugby league knowledge. And then off the back of that, and I actually had Arta contact me and ask me about coming on board as the head coach, which I was very honoured to have the opportunity. And that's something that obviously anybody who's involved in international rugby league could see. That doesn't matter if they're level, just that love of the opportunity to work with some great people like Arta and the volunteers, and with Matt here. So that's kind of where I was at until about 6 months ago, and then had the opportunity to go to Belgrade with the under 19s.
You touched on this briefly in the answer you've just given to Stu's question, but I believe there's a somewhat of a deliberate strategy recently to incorporate heritage players in the team. How's everything going with that?
So with the heritage players, we've got about 30 that have been training with us in different standards. I mean, we've got a range of players from, obviously, your most high profile one that qualifies is Nathan Clary, but I think he's a little bit busy next month. Hudson Young, and then there's a couple of guys who've played Queensland Cup, New South Wales Cup here. And then across in the UK, you've got the likes of Cameron Scott, who plays for Hull FC. There's Oliver Wilson, who we approached. Fortunately, he ended up playing for England this off season. So unfortunately, he's So we
Damn it! I'll steal the next question, Stu.
Yes.
Because you're already answering this one, Dan. Have the Cleary brothers and Hudson Young been approached by you guys at all?
Yes, they have been approached. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, we're not allowed to release our squad, our heritage squad. So unfortunately, I can't give you any exclusives. Unfortunately, we can't. Yes, I know. But unfortunately, yeah. So with the European Rugby League, they've got to have the announcement of what the squads are going to be. Although I know that we are planning for the World Cup qualifiers, which are in October. And I'll go into a little bit of depth of that if you're happy for me to. So the plan there is we're going to fly to the Chechia, formerly known as Czech Republic. We're going to be in camp there for a couple of days, and then we're going to play them in a test match on the Friday night. They've been wonderful. They've really, really helped us out with sort of the facilities and the stadium and playing on a Friday night. opposed to, say, a Saturday or Sunday, because they're giving us the most amount of time. And then we're traveling down to Carcassonne, where we'll play the French national side on the Tuesday night. And then after that, we will play the winner or the loser of Wales and Serbia. So depending on how results go. Obviously, France is 8th in the world, and we're currently 20th. So that's how we're playing them. And then Wales and Serbia are playing each other. So then the winner of that mini tournament will then go on to play in the World Series against, I think it's the Cook Islands, Jamaica, and South Africa to make the World Cup.
Wow. That is, wow, well done. That's huge respect. That's super exciting. We have a large contingent of probably crossover fans to Chasing Kangaroos who have sort of like been a bit dormant for the past year or so. So shout out to Michael. But a lot of our listeners are there's sort of train spotting niche international fans outside of the big three or even the big five, if you want to include Samoa and Tonga, etc. in there. So that's super exciting for anyone listening to hear. Ukraine is taking on France. That you guys are flying to Chechia. Is it Chechia?
Yeah, it's called Chechia now. I still, unfortunately, as I say, I'm a little bit older, and I've always known it as the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they're looking after you. From my knowledge and contact with them, they're really one of the quiet achievers of international rugby league. They're not really out there a lot, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes and a lot of good stuff going on, I think, in the Czech Republic.
Yeah. A shout out to the Vashlabi Mad Squirrels. They sent me a giant cookie once when I was just doing some reporting for Everything Rugby League about 10 years ago. And it was in the shape of a pig. It was a local delicacy, they tell me.
I think that is one of my favorite names of a team is the Mad Squirrels. I think that's a good nickname.
Right, there's a few USARL teams that turned my eye with their names as well.
I think when I was in Belgrade last month, we spoke with the USA under-19 side, and a few of those guys were part of the Mongrels and the Barracudas. So there's some exciting names coming out, not just your traditionals.
Yeah, actually, that's a perfect segue to my next question, which I've got written as the Ukraine under-19 team, as you just said, recently played in the European under-19s Championship, which was held in Serbia. Firstly, it's amazing that they could even be there. And were you happy with the way that they performed?
Yeah, I think especially, I think people don't realize, obviously, the country's at war, yet Ukraine Rugby League is still sort of participating in games. I mean, we've played 4 under 9-a-side tournaments this year. Ukrainian Super League on one day, so they played everybody in the competition. Unfortunately, the stadiums look fairly empty because they're not allowed to disclose the location, obviously for safety reasons of the stadium. So a lot of the games are online. And they managed to actually get them recorded, and they're actually on the current of satellite TV in Ukraine. So they're doing some great work on the ground, and especially like this weekend just gone, they've actually started the first ever Touch Rugby League tournament. So they're pushing forward with Touch Rugby League, a 4-team tournament. And there's other plans going forward. I mean, the youth again have been playing tag and tackle rugby league throughout the season. So again, they're doing some amazing things that should be promoted, especially under such tough circumstances. But yeah, from the under-19s going to Belgrade, it was their first ever third place. Sort of 2 years beforehand, they came fourth. So this year it was we played Serbia. We beat them and managed to play England in the semi-final. If only the game stopped after 12 minutes. We were 2-0 up after 12, and the boys were performing pretty well. Unfortunately, a couple of little differences in having 3 teams versus how many thousands of players to select from is a big difference. But our boys, they defended well. They defended tough. Skill-wise, they were there. It's just that rugby league knowledge of when to complete sets, when to kick long, when to kick early, when to sort of move into sort of attacking, or when you need to just sort of finish your set. Really, that's the difference. A lot of these guys have grown up with league and union, so sometimes when it's a pressure situation, they'll fall back into a couple of rugby union sort of standards. But England went on to beat France, so it was the French actual sort of academy side. So these are the guys who are going to be playing for Catalan's Dragons and for the French national side in the sort of next 5, 10, 15 years. So we were actually very proud of the way that they performed. Um, I was actually one of the first sessions I had with the under-19s. I was so surprised at their skill level, the catch and pass ability, the way that they moved, it was great. And that's something that, unfortunately, at the moment in time, because of the conflict, we can't get enough teams going in to play rugby league against these local teams, or actually go in and do training camps, and actually teach them those rugby league things of how to win a tackle, how to sort of sort of attack, like sort of 4v3, 3v2 in a rugby league style, opposed to those rugby league sort of habits that they've got. But yeah, really, really happy with how those guys have done. There were a fair few of them that were actually young, so they were a year or two younger, so they can be involved in the next tournament. And a lot of these players have actually gone on and playing in the opens, in the nines tournaments for teams and things like that in Ukraine.
Yeah, just continue on that theme, Dan. Speaking to Arta Martirosyan after Ukraine defeated Greece in Athens last year, he spoke about all the players that had been lost to war, which is unfortunately the harsh reality of what's going on there. I mean, my question is, how do they even manage to train and play in an environment like that?
So from my experience when I was in Belgrade, working, like sitting down over the next sort of week and a half, 2 weeks with some of these staff, and you're just having a coffee and you sit there and go, what's it actually like? And they're talking to you how, um, like anything, that you kind of get blasé for it. Like a lot of them were saying that you're walking down the city and you hear the air raid sirens, and the guys who are in Kharkiv, on the eastern side, it's actually, I think it's a minute 15 seconds between when a missile is sent from Russia to Kharkiv, and you haven't got enough time to actually get down to a bomb shelter. So you kind of have to just hope and just carry on as normal. That sort of, yeah, and that's where they're at after sort of nearly 2 years of 2 and a bit years of the war going on. When they are actually organizing these sort of the games, I mean, there's not really as much training like we would normally, where you'd go Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday. They don't have that opportunity. It's a case of just coming together when you can. And Arthur and his team have a great organization where they've got those dates out and they applying to the Ministry of Defense there, and they'll send the names of the people, and the government will pay for their trains to come off the front line to then travel to a training or a game day. And like you've seen with some of the games, that they actually they have to, before they start their tournament, have backup plans of, if the air raid sirens go, the footage will cut and then they'll disappear into the bomb shelters and do what they need to do. And I think that's testament to the I think that's something that you can't take away from the armed forces on the front line, um, but also the resilience of the people, that they're willing to come off those front lines to come and play the game of rugby league away from their families or anything like that. I think it just shows how much they love the game.
Oh, absolutely. And I can't even fathom the commitment that they have to the game. And, we sit here, you mentioned earlier, we sit here on all these nights, sit here on a podcast, and, we get to sort of go to NRL games, and life is great. But to play the game under those conditions is nothing but respect from my end. So, well done to all and sundry. It's incredible to me. They've actually had, Ukraine has traditionally had a strong domestic competition. Has that been able to be revived, or what's the situation like?
So before the war, they had the 8 teams, sort of domestic side, and they had some social sides as well, and then the juniors coming through. With what's going on because of players being lost or players not being able to get time away from the front line or other factors, they're actually having combined teams with some of them. So you've got your really strong sides like Kharkiv Legion 13 and Lviv Tigers, but then you'll have some that players will be playing for one team, like nines tournament, and then you'll see it 3 4 weeks later, and then they're helping somebody else out. They're moving across. So we've got a couple of teams who, like, say, uh, Rivne Giants and Ivana Frankivsk region came together and formed a team called West Giants. So that they're making sure that we have enough players for each team and people allow ability to get out there and play. And that's a plan that if you look at imagine, I mean, we're all imagine what could happen without the war, but these guys are really tough people who've got such a love for rugby league that they're still making it happen. And that's what you got to take your hat off. That we all have a bad day where you feel, hey, I don't want to go training or I don't want to go to the game, but these guys are traveling for 5 6 hours to get across to a nines tournament to combine with another team to play for a day. I think that's just something that I wish that is something that we could do after the war, where we get plenty of teams coming in and visiting in and to play these guys and really sort of support what they're doing and the sacrifices that they've made. That yeah, like it's coming off the front line. It's like, well, I'm choosing to not spend that time with my family or my wife or down the pub. I'm actually going to play rugby league, and I think that shows you that these guys, especially after the war, need as much support from not only professional organisations like the European Rugby League, but also the International Federation, Super League sides, and NRL sides. I think we need to do, and like we said, Serbia have got the sort of the premier competition in Eastern Europe. I think if it wasn't for the war, I think it's something that Ukraine definitely could be challenging that. Um, and I think it's something that, again, if any other nations want to reach out and obviously put things in onto paper about, hey, after the war, when it's safe and things like that, we'll come across and we'll play a game. I know in the past, I know York Acorn have been, the England Lions. There's a lot of opportunities to play.
That would be fantastic to see, Dan. You're obviously coaching from a distance most of the time, which is something that I know a little bit about as well. How are you managing that?
Again, technology and having a weird sleep schedule helps. So if I can't sleep, there's always somebody online that I could speak to and I send messages through. I think something with technology these days is being great. Having the ability to use sort of like this, like your Teams, your Zoom, WhatsApp, Google Translate helps a lot. Obviously, it's not as great as being in person. Um, Even just the ability to work with the under 19s and the coaches who will be involved in the national side, just that ability to sit down with a whiteboard in person, or you actually got a football and you're on the field is so much better than through sort of technology. However, cutting bits of the game and really breaking things down using a whiteboard, recording it, using Google Translate, sending that across, and again, using appropriate questioning that I know that these people actually understand what I'm trying to talk about or trying to get to. Having the ability to see the games that they've got there. So a lot of the games are on YouTube or on different sort of streaming services where we can actually cut that down and say, hey, this was good. I like you did this, or using software where you can go, okay, this is your better line that you need to approach. I think that's probably where we're at the moment.
Yeah, fair enough. We're down to our final four questions. Stu actually wrote this question, and I had to look it up, and I tend to agree by what I could see in the footage. There's a physical nature to the way that Ukrainians play rugby league. Is that something that you guys will use to your advantage?
I think that's something that a lot of people love about the game.
Yeah.
I think it's slightly different. Generally, I watch football or soccer, and there's a bit of a shoulder barge and they go down. And you're like, oh, get up, whatever. But the physical nature, I think that again has to do with people who are willing to put their bodies on the line for each other, to really sacrifice for their teammate, sort of put away that sort of um, self-preservation. And I think generally when you've got people that you want to play alongside or play against, um, that's where you're going to go 100% into it. And I think that's something that I personally love. Weirdly, I was a halfback who could defend. I love defending. Wasn't the fastest player, but I could defend, and I knew I could put somebody through a hole and sort of control the team and where we needed to get to. I think that's really reflective of my coaching style. I think we look back and some of the greatest games are shot like close, tight score lines. I think it's something that when you look at Penrith Panthers at the moment, why they're so good because of the defensive nature. And again, same with Melbourne. Why are these really good sides good? Um, you can defend all day long, and all it needs is a drop ball from the opposition, and you go 60 meters to win the game. But you score, I score is not really an exciting game. That's my philosophy about the game.
You mentioned earlier your first match in the World Qualifiers is against France. I think it's on the 22nd of October. Given most of their players will actually be from Super League, it's obviously a big challenge for the team. What are your expectations for the match?
I think firstly, I just want to say that Ukraine have earned the right to play them, to be where they are. The work on the ground, especially in the difficult circumstances. Yeah, we're not had the ideal preparation, but again, like you said, Keith, that physical nature. Our boys are they love the strength and conditioning aspect of the game, and that's something that we've really sort of from a distance said these are our standards. This is what we're wanting. This is what we're looking at, and it's about coming in and same as Stu like Greece did, where you came in and as long as you've got that belief for each other and you're really buying in, and yeah, we can see what happens. We can. Um, as I say, everybody loves a good underdog story, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a few people cheering on the Ukrainian boys.
Yeah, I love that. The president of Ukraine Rugby League, Artur Matsuv-Rosian, has been a dynamo in developing the sport in his country. Can you speak to some of the work that he's done?
I think, like you're saying, that every country has somebody like that. That's why the European game. This is why I've got such a passion for that game. Is in Europe and elsewhere, you can see it in Africa and in Americas, where there's always sort of somebody who's just doing such a great job from volunteering their time. Like I say, Ardo. I think Ardo is somebody who's led from the front, and now he's actually sort of got a great team around him of people. He's the one who's out there helping mark the lines through to promotion, and I had to get more messages in from him on a daily basis than I do my wife. So, but yeah, a lot of the things that he does, he's questioning, he's asking why are we doing this? He wants to know, he wants to come along, he wants to help out. But again, it's from applying and working with the ministers to working with the defense to allow these players to come off the front lines to um, approaching sort of ambassadors. And I mean, just this week we met with Vasyl Myrosenko from he's the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia and New Zealand, and Vasyl has spoken with Arta about some of the work and opportunities, and there's a few things that he's working on as an Arta that's behind the scenes to help move the game forward. Again, like I said, the work that there's always something exciting coming up. I've seen an 8-page game development plan that they've put together, and just this week, like I said, this weekend they've started with Touch Rugby League, um, and I think it's something that these are the people who we need to get involved at the top level to develop the international game. He's been on the ground from pumping footballs up to handing out medals to doing speeches through to working with the government organizations and organizing tickets for the players to travel. And yeah, I think he's just doing an amazing job. And yeah, like I said, that Ukraine have deserved to be playing France, and I think partly down to mainly to what Arda's doing and the people around him. I think that's what we're saying. That's why it's exciting because players are willing to work for him and play for him and do what needs to be done.
When I when I spoke to Arthur, he told me that Ukraine players are big fans of the NRL, and he told me a story about how he really got into it after that Scott Sattler tackle in a final and became a Panthers fan and all that sort of thing. Is that something you've noticed with the players, that they really like watching, the NRL and State of Origin and all that sort of stuff?
I think you can't help. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can't help but want to watch the NRL. It's the premium competition. It's just the excitement. I mean, where else would there be so much excitement of a spoon bowl this evening? Um, yeah, as I say, it's the West Tigers' biggest game in 19 years. Um, but I'm pretty sure that it shows you that this is it's like anything. You want to look up at the best of what's out there and the excitement and the way the game's played here. And even especially Ukrainian guys watching the other week was the Raiders and the Penrith game. You've got so many. I think myself a few years ago, actually, when I was deciding whether to get involved or not, I put a bet on the Ukrainian boys. I think it was $10 to put on the Ukrainian boys scoring a try each in the Penrith Canberra game, and I think all four of them actually scored. So I was like, okay, that's a sign. That's a sign. But yeah, I think that's something that's allowed me to help with the coaching from a distance is having those little cuts and snippets from here of, hey, this is what Cleary does, or Azareo does here, or anything like that. Sort of that 5-6 seconds. Send that across and then really break it down for them, and then questioning in regards to that. And I've seen already some of the things that we've been working on being implemented across there, and yeah, I think it's exciting having a product like the NRL, and hopefully, like as I says, we want to hopefully try and get a sort of a really good relationship with one or two of the clubs here to try and assist over there, be it if some of their players after the war come here for a year or two, or what we can do. That'd be exciting.
Yeah, I concur. And that seems like a great place to leave it. We're actually out of questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Dan?
I think it's something that is very exciting. I mean, the players across Europe just love playing and representing their country, and it's something that we really sort of develop the relationships. People go, oh yeah, the game's played across in Europe or anything like that, but the relationships between each country that when they play each other. I mean, Ukraine and Greece didn't get on the field well. There's a bit of an upset, but off the field, they've still spent time and love together, and everyone just wants everybody else to succeed. It's just a great thing, and I just want more and more people, especially in Australia, just to have a look, have a second team as a nation to support the growth of the game, because the bigger the game becomes, the more money that's going to be pumped into the game, and that's how the game's going to progress.
I love that idea. If there's 20 teams in the NRL within the next sort of 5 years or whatever, and it has to be someone like Peter V'landys with the gravitas and power that he has to mandate that every one of those clubs partner with a developing nation. I would love to see that.
Just to go off with that as well, sorry to interrupt. So my team, Hull Kingston Rovers, are actually linking up with Netherlands. So they're actually development coaches are working with the women's program in Netherlands, and also Hockey are actually playing a game in Amsterdam in pre-season. So they're helping the growth of the game that way, and hopefully we can get something very similar with Super League or NRL sides, or even if it's waiting for happy to reach out and with each country, and after the war, or touching base with like Stu with Greece and things like that. But yeah, but just before we finish, I think something that the guys on the ground really want to thank is the defenders of Ukraine, allowing them the ability to play and and the government to allowing them to leave the country to represent the country. It's not ideal, sort of 20 odds, sort of poor, sort of young 20-year-old males, fighting age males, can leave the country, but to represent is a great opportunity.
Yeah, well said. Any final thoughts, Stu, before we wrap this up?
No, I found that incredibly interesting. And I wish you well. I would love to see Ukraine upset France in the World Cup qualifier. That would be a dream. So
Can we get a Greece Rugby League sharing on for Ukraine banner on the Facebook page or something?
I'll see what I can do.
All right, well, Dan Beardshaw, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
No worries, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Everything Rugby League. If you like this episode, give the show a follow and leave a review. For more news and insights, follow us on Facebook or head to everythingrugbyleague.com.